Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to the Man Alone Solo role-playing game YouTube channel. Gosh, there's got to be an easier way to say all that. Today, there's lots of good news, friends. Lots of good news. We're going to be talking about a game from Alex T, Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse, as well as the supplement Voidspire Territories you see printed out before you. So hot off the press that the image files are not on there yet. Don't worry, they will be. But lots of good news. We're going to have lots and lots of good news today. For instance, we're going to have some good music by Witan, W-I-T-A-N. One of my favorite dungeon synth artists. But let's start off with the big headline. Thank you to everybody, because Vox Profunda is currently sitting at number 3 best-selling titles here on Drive-Thru. Vox Profunda, if you didn't know this, is Latin for temperamental toilet. So thank you to everybody who has downloaded that. Still now, between now and Sunday, it's going to be at the heavenly price of $7.77. So make sure you pick that up. But before we do anything else, I just want a word from our sponsor. Aren't you tired of the other guys? You know who I'm talking about. No selection, and the games they do have, prices are through the roof. Don't you wish there was a store that treated you the way you deserve? Well, I have good news. Since 1997, Noble Knight Games has been serving the needs of gamers just like you and me. They specialize in both new and out-of-print RPGs, board games, war games, collectible card games, miniatures, all things game-related. At Noble Knight, they take pride in creating great experiences for their customers. So whether you're shopping in their brick-and-mortar store up in Fitchburg, Wisconsin, or through their easy-to-use website, here's what you're going to get. Discounted prices, easy and secure checkout, fast and friendly customer service, and worldwide shipment. If it's listed on their website, unless it's pre-order or special order, it's in stock and it's ready to ship, okay? As always, they offer a satisfaction guarantee, so go ahead, click the link below, check out Noble Knight Games, and not only that, you support the Man Alone channel. So Noble Knight Games, thank you so much for sponsoring the channel, and folks, let's say it together. Noble Knight Games, where the out-of-print, where the out-of-print is available again. Thank you, everybody, and thank you to Noble Knight Games. Where the out-of-print is available again. You heard it right, folks. Thank you, Noble Knight. And yes, there's an affiliate link down below. If you click on that, anything that you buy after clicking on that link, I assume not forever, but for some period of time, proceeds will benefit the Man Alone habit. And truly, I love Noble Knight so much, I take all of my proceeds in store credit because I know it's going there anyways. So if you like me reviewing games on this channel and getting new stuff, appreciate that support. In the background, you're hearing the new, it came out maybe 6 months ago, June or July. This is Hibernal by Witan. I think that's how you say it. I want to say like Witan, but I know he's out of England. Very, very awesome dude. This was an email way back when pretty much it was just me and Desert Dweller and Saint Solo on the channel here, and I said, hey, I play some games on my channel. Would it be all right if I played some of your music in the background? And just like immediate response, absolutely, very encouraging. So really, really love this music. I'm getting into dungeon synth bad, man. I'm trying to get, you know what it means to get into it bad is I'm trying to get other people into it as well. You know what I mean? I'm kind of being like, hey, have you heard this stuff? But it's just, I can't help it. I mean, it's just perfect music, especially to solo with. Bandcamp Friday starts in 3 hours 38 minutes. I don't know what that is, but I picked up this album for £7, so I guess that's like $9. Digital download. I'd love a cassette tape of it, but it's so hard to get cassette tapes because everybody buys them right away. Anyway, so yeah, so thank you for providing us with a little bit of background music. Now, I always make the mistake of turning it down too much, so I'm going to leave it just a wee bit louder than I think it should be, and then it's going to be too loud. I know that because the sound is the bane, but that's okay. We're grooving. So here's my pitch for this. All right, my pitch is: Are you one of those individuals who, when it comes to solo gaming, you're like, can I get a game that I can just like play? Or can I get a game where after I build my character, I'll actually want to keep going, keep playing, like to keep that momentum? This is your game. All right. Now, some of you might be scrambling right now, opening every browser tab, calling the internet, calling Internet Explorer, saying, excuse me, I can't find the web page. Man alone has told me that there is this game, Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse, and I can't find it anywhere for sale. Well, because this was actually released, if I could find the damn thing, through Alex T's Black Oaths Entertainment's new model of distributing games through the Patreon. So if you were a member of the page, you woke up one fine day and you just had a copy of this game in your inbox. And if you're at a certain level, you get a print version of the game. Since this has been released, the Voidspire Territories is coming up. Alex T's a machine. He's already working on like the advanced. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, Alex. I'm sorry, but he's already working on the advanced version of this game. This game just came out. We cannot compete, folks. Just give it up. We'll never have the output of Alex T. All right, so I wanted to play through Voidspire Territories, but I thought we would go over the base game to start. I'll put a link down for the Patreon because you could still get it. I think he's going to be selling a few physical copies of this game, but not yet. And so might be a little while for that, and it's going to be, I'm pretty sure, I'm talking out of my rear right now. I really don't know, but if you want to play this game, grab the PDF, because from the moment you open this game to playing it, I think you could do it in 30 to 45 minutes. Seriously. And the gameplay, it's snappy dappy. Oh man, what the hell? What am I, 81? But in addition to it being snappy dappy as the core game, the Voidspire Territories adds an even more intuitive layer of play. Okay, so the first thing, obviously, is we want to roll up a character. I have, as I always do, Jorma is my character's name. However, I have allowed for using name generators for like the last name. So this is Jorma Corvin. And let's see here. So, well, we'll go through the PDF. All right, so a little bit about this game. This game is like this, I don't know if it's right to call it like retro future. No, it's not like, what is that game? What's the game that's like kind of in an Ayn Randian, Bioshock. It's not like Bioshock where it's like, hey there, mister, where's your striped suit? It's a dying Earth scenario. There's been some sort of techno-apocalypse. And so because of this, there's this like really bad uh, electromagnetic phenomena that makes almost all electricity and tech and stuff not work. And on top of that, there's been this massive like restriction of technological and just kind of like nobody knows how to use machines anymore. So I really like this because it reminds me of one of my favorite things about Warhammer 40k, which is the Adeptus Mechanicus, where people have sort of forgotten how to run a lot of the most complex technology. And so rather than trying to figure it out, they just like let it run and then treat it as if it's sort of a metaphysical or spiritual or holy phenomenon. And that's what you have here is there's these individuals that sort of control the technology, but the technology is so advanced, it's so complex that it looks like magic. And in fact, really the magic system in this game is the use of this technology that people don't really understand anymore. So it's called the Veil of Understanding. People in the Noxian Expanse don't see technology as it truly is. Their entire worldview interprets it through a mystical or religious lens. This is exacerbated further by the priests that serve the machine gods, working as glorified techs who have learned to operate specific systems through rote ritual. Yeah, so it's like, you know, it's just like the Adeptus Mechanicus, where if a machine is broken, you have to appease the machine god within it. So rather than, you know, calling the Geek Squad, you want to call like the Roman Catholic Church and have them bring some incense and sort of swing the little like decanter around the machine to get it to work. Active technology appears magical. Nanite clouds look like ghostly energy. Digital displays appear as mystical symbols. Wireless commands and programs seem like spells to most. Power flows through ley lines that are actually power grids and data networks, and sacred sites are often critical infrastructure nodes. Even those who work directly with advanced systems understand it through ritual and tradition rather than science. So I work as a reclaimer. That's my role. That's the player character role. And we have some sort of affinity for working with old tech. I don't know if that means that we're good working with it through the like idea of it being like that we actually understand it, or if it's just that we're good at interfacing with it but maintain the sort of like understanding of it as this mystical, sacred technology. But this picture here kind of gives a good vibe for what's going on. Is this is a feudalist future. It's techno-feudalist. And one of the things that, you know, we see in a lot of sci-fi, there's AI. There has to be a reason why AI is no longer answering a lot of questions, right? Because AI is an interesting thing to incorporate storyline-wise because there are so many questions in sci-fi that can be answered and also sort of hand-waved very cheaply with AI. So I always think, you know, and could we thank Frank Herbert for this? Is like Dune with the Butlerian Jihad? Is this where this started? But as like the reality of computing became more clear, and as people started to understand more of like what computing looked like and what it could look like, I think sci-fi authors probably said, well, you know, in our story, we either have to deal with AI as some sort of embodied android cyborg antagonist, or there has to be a way for us to say it's not there anymore. Okay. And so the way that it's dealt with here is there can still be these rogue AIs, but I really like this. They're considered like demons incursions. So they can still happen, but for the most part, AI doesn't exist because of this electromagnetic field over the Noxian Expanse that interrupts the ability for a lot of complex machinery to work. All right. And so, you know, I'm a reclaimer. I'm going to these different sites. I'm looking for this ancient technology. But again, there's probably other examples of this as well, but I just love Adeptus Mechanicus. I don't know if I'm alone in this. They're one of my favorite factions in Warhammer. And I like the idea. They're sort of... What's wild about it is Let me actually show you really quick a picture of Belisarius Call. For those who aren't familiar with this, I want to bring this up because I want to show you what this looks like, but at the same time give you the contrast or the contradiction here. All right, so let me pause for 1 second. Okay, so this is Belisarius Call, who's one of my favorite characters, the Archmagos, and like, just look at the design here and everything. I have great fear about building this model just because it's so intricate. But you can see that it's like simultaneously extremely technologically advanced, but also there's like a bullhorn or an air horn here. And everything is so unbelievably elaborate. You know, you have these here, which is, what are those called? I know the name of them, but it escapes me right now. But so he's a member of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and Call is actually kind of heretical because he believes that, like, hey, maybe we can improve these land raiders that we've been making the same way for 8,000 years. But pretty much everyone in the 40K universe is like, no. The construction of a land raider, it's exactly what the Emperor intended it to be. And so we cannot innovate on that because the Emperor has already made it like perfection. And in fact, a good example of that would be another model I greatly fear making. This is an Exorcist. This is for the Adeptus Sororitas, a tank that is also an organ. And yes, just say yes to anything. Any question you have right now, it's like, yes. The answer is yes. But it's like, you can't improve on that because it's already perfect. And so the only way that new technology can be created, they have two options. Number one, they're always allowed to make something that exists bigger or smaller. So like if you have a gun that's this big, you could also make the same one that's this big, or like as big as my entire table. The second thing is you can find technology, right? You can find some technology that hasn't been discovered before through what would be called like techno-archaeology. And if you find new technology, that's a really great thing because you've discovered something that we lost that the Emperor made. And so in the same way, the reclaimers in this are functioning in a lot of the same way, which is like techno-archaeology. And that wets my whistle as far as solo play goes, because here's what this means. I think, honestly, scavenging, archaeology, searching things out, it's really the best, or at least one of the best ways to create a sustainable solo play loop. Because, you know, I think you're still able to create a like a meta story. You could still find out some or uncover some bigger truth, but there's also always going to be an answer to the question of like, oh, what should I do next? Well, you can go to another site and you can, you know, discover something new. And there is a grid-based exploration system in here that I think works really well. In the Noxian Expanse edition, there's also this generating plots and conspiracies, which is you lay out this grid. I tried to make one myself. When I was done, I was like, wow, this looks so cool. And then I like looked at it again and I was like, kind of, something's like wrong with it. I don't know what it is like up here. The letters are weird or something, but there's also, in addition to the player sheet and the gear sheet and the spells sheet, there's this campaign sheet that you can track like your arcs of your campaign on, okay? So yeah, this basic system where we're going to roll up, you just roll 3d6, and then based on the outcomes of that, you are going to just assign it to each of your stats, and it's a modifier system. I had some pretty good rolls, 14, 12, 9, 16, 9, 11, and so that just led to these modifiers of +1, 0, 0, +2 in intelligence, 0, and 0. And essentially, this is just about as easy as it gets, is you're just going to use those modifiers and you are going to measure them versus a difficulty rating or in like a defense rating or whatever it is. And you want to exceed that, and then you move that target number around based on how difficult something is. But there's also an incorporation of something that it's like if there was an Academy Awards for things that Man Alone is loving in 2025 in solo play, one of them has already been mentioned, which is keywords. I'm loving keywords in games. I'm also liking usage dice, and there is a really good use of usage dice in this game. And basically usage dice would be anything where you, rather than like hardcore tracking of the quantity of something, you have D12 of it. So say you have D12 arrows, and then depending on the game, every time you use an arrow, you'll roll, and and as long as you don't roll a 1 or a 2, you still have this abstracted number of D12 quantity of that. But see, I rolled a 2, so now I would go down on the usage die to a D8, and every time I use it now, I would roll on that, till I get a 1 or a 2, and then I would go down to a D6, and then a D4, and then it's out. So right there, 2 really simple systems. If you're somebody who you like working with numbers, but you don't want a lot that you have to keep like squishing your mind grapes every time something happens in the game, this is going to be a great game for you. You get these feats, which are advantages. Okay, so and I'm going to re-roll some of this because there's some of this stuff is specific to the Voidspire Territories supplement, and Alex does say that, like, this will make it easier if you use your motivation or your background. If we place it in the Voidspire stuff, it'll be easier to like connect myself to what's going on. I just did this to play through a little bit as practice before the video. So for instance, I could get a feat of like frugal. All right, and then if I rolled frugal, it is you only require 1 ration every 2 days. Now, you can get an additional, up to 2 additional feats, but for each feat after the first one, you need an additional drawback. All right, so for instance, I took the drawback of, I did one of them. I rolled, I got a 9 slow healer, so I only heal D4 plus constitution when resting. I think, what is it, D6 or D8 usually. And Jorma Corvin, what I did roll up was that I was a hereditary guardian. Is that what it is? Boy, do any of you have tinnitus? Because mine has been really bad lately, and right now it's really ringing. It's like the worst kind of brain soundtrack. And again, I'm going to re-roll some of this stuff right here with the Voidspire. And then for your starting gear, you choose a weapon, you choose armor, you get 10 rations, and you get 500 coins. You could choose it. I chose, not surprisingly, a Warhammer, which also gives me the Warhammer proficiency and half plate of armor. There doesn't look like a good place to put my info about my armor. I know that there's this box here that I get a +4, but my armor also has an agility penalty, and I just wish there was like a little something that I could put my armor in so I could write like the traits of it and stuff. Your carrying capacity is equal to your strength. Certain things like rations, every 10 of them takes up 1 slot. Coins, every 100 of them takes up 1 slot. So I have 14 overall, and with my coins and my rations -6, I have 8 open slots. And here's another thing that makes for damn good solo play: advancement. Alex is a big fan of lit RPGs, so there's cultivation RPGs, so there should be this gathering power. Your character should be getting stronger and stronger throughout the game, to the point where, you know, if you play it for long enough, you're going to be amazing. And if you played let's see. Well, if you played what was it? Ruthless Heavens, Boundless Fates, and you thought maybe, hey, this is a little too much for me to manage, this game is like a compressed version of that, I think, in a lot of ways. So yeah, you can turn in development points and cultivate them, and then you can sort of cash those in, earn interest on your experience points. And yeah, so there's these target numbers. If something is very easy, then you only have to roll over a 5. So I would just look at my modifier for that. I'd add that to D20 roll, and if I beat it, I succeeded. There's also this dynamic target numbers table, which I think is really cool. And what this allows you to do is you add up all your modifiers, and it shifts your target number. So for instance, myself here, I have +1, 0, 0, +2, 0, 0. So my total modifier is 3. So I can use this row right here for, well, actually, I guess it wouldn't be, oh, I see, my bad. So it would be the total modifier in that stat that I'm testing, and that would also include things like, you know, if it was defense, I'd add my armor. And so for intelligence, my total modifier would be +2. And so for that, if I wanted to scale it, instead of having a very easy task be that I have to roll over 5, I have to roll over 9. Advantage and disadvantage, very classic. You just roll 2 d20 and then take the more favorable or unfavorable. And yeah, here's the usage die that I explained before. Combat's pretty straightforward. Initiative, everything's going to look very, very familiar here. So we can look up this stuff as we go along. But I think casting spells, let's talk about this. To activate a relic and cast a spell, players need to channel resonance from one of their resonance cores. So these resonance cores are like a battery. This requires mental focus and intent, which in game terms means a willpower check is required. Every spell has a target number that must be used when attempting to cast said spell. If the casting check is failed, the resonance is lost and the spell doesn't work. So that's basically like channeling enough power to cast the spell, which is actually probably this effect of some relic. All right. So I think with this, I'm going to scan through this, see if there's anything else we need to review. If not, let's get into the Voidspire Territories. Yeah, so for instance, like Fireball, the target number is 14. So I'd have to roll a willpower check for that and get over 14 to even cast the spell. And then if I do, I get to shoot the ball of fire that affects up to D6 nearby creatures, dealing D8 damage to every one of them. Again, really simple, really straightforward. There's also this twist system that I really like. It's cumulative, so you roll to see if there's a twist. And after you decide like what the scene is, you establish it, then you roll a 1d6. And it's a 1 in 6 chance that there's going to be a twist that you can then roll on a twist table. For instance, here I rolled a 4, so no twist. But then the next time, it's 2 in 6, all the way up to 3 in 6. So it becomes more and more likely that your plans will be not totally derailed, but something you don't expect. If we look at the bottom of this page here, we have the GM-less gameplay structure. We establish a scene, roll the twist die to see if there's a surprise event, answer any questions about the scene with a yes/no question table, or you could use something, you know, like the Fate Mill is always good for this. This one here has more of like a target number, though, that will adjust based on the likeliness of the scene. So you might want to do that when things aren't 50-50. And so you answer those questions, you establish the scene, you use the normal gameplay rules, you know, see if you need to do an attribute check, combat, talk to an NPC. And then once we've like sort of explored that scene for everything it's worth, we go through our story arcs and we update anything that we need to update. And maybe we'll update something a little bit, maybe we won't, but you see there's a twist modifier here that also allows us to say, like, if something's been a pretty dormant or pretty sleepy arc, we can increase the chance that there's going to be a twist there so that something exciting happens. Yep. Here's the table for surprise or unknown events. You roll a 2d8. And so your first, actually, use my little D8 ring because I don't feel like digging around for a D8. So we have 3. That would be environment. And then we'll roll a D8 again. And we have a 5, which will be unnatural. So something in the environment is unnatural. And then it'll explain like what each of these are. So an event related to your surroundings, often a sudden change of weather or perhaps a change in an arcology's surroundings. Information here on updating story arcs, some questions you can ask yourself to see like, are there any more characters involved? Are there any more leads to follow? If it was based on a request or a quest or a mission, is there anything else that needs to be completed? So I hope you're seeing like what I'm seeing here. Little drummer boy, is that the song? Do you see what I see? A simple game that's not too hard to play. I'm sorry for that, but still has lots of variation. Okay, then action theme. This is a great 2 D100 tables that you can pretty much just summon anything, to. This is the Omni Oracle. Like every good solo game will have an Omni Oracle, and different. If these tables alone don't give you enough information, you have additional tables for interpreting the event, which I think is. This is just really good. If you're new to solo play, sign up for this Patreon. Check this out. I got no dog in the fight, other than I like Alex T's stuff. No kickbacks here or anything like that. I just like any game that is going to invite newer players in with like open arms, because this is the hardest thing is figuring out how to get into flow state for the first time in solo play. And so there are games that you can get into really easily, easier than this, right? You can get into a lot of journaling games and stuff like that a lot easier. But I think that for some people, there's a desire to go deeper with this, something that has elements that they find scary. And if you're an experienced solo player or tabletop player, you might not understand, you might not remember the fact that like derived attribute ratings or modifier or a target number, that those are sort of scary things to people who don't have a history, especially if you don't have a history playing collaborative play and stuff like that. And so I like any game like this that's going to walk people through it in a very simple, straightforward way that still has a lot of opportunity for random stuff to happen. So a little something here about tracking events. We can also use the usage die to track like an event that is actually running on some sort of timer. If there's something that's going to self-destruct, or there's access codes that are going to trigger the launch of something in a certain amount of time. We determine the first one, like how much time it's going to be. If it's going to be a really long time, it's D20. But if it's going to be, something that is pretty soon going to happen, it can be D6 or even a D4. And then whenever you roll a 1 or a 2, it goes down by 1 of the usage die until you roll a 1 or a 2 on a D4, and then whatever happens is going to trigger. And so if you use that as a resource die, a 1 or a 2 on a D4 means you've run out of that resource. But if you use it on an event die, this is a really cool way to track events, is just whatever you're waiting for is about to happen. It could be really anything. And as you get better at determining what like good tracking events are, this comes in. Oh, sorry for that tooth whistle there. This comes really in handy, because you could even get pretty abstract with it, where you could say like, suppose that somebody in your party is like 19 years old and they're supposed to inherit, their father's business or the queen's kingdom or whatever, when like nobody in their family knows that they're on this adventure with you until this usage die gets down to D4 and you roll a 1 or a 2. And then suddenly the Queen's Guard is going to be looking for this companion of yours in your party. So how does that change the story? Do you then start a new usage die to say this is when they've tracked me down? And then you determine like what sort of events will cause me to roll that die. It could be when you see a threat. It could be something that you want to create higher stakes for, right? So you could say, well, I can stop and rest anytime and increase my HP, but every time I do that, I have to roll my usage die. So really, really, really good system that I think needs to be used much more in solo play by present speaker included. Good tools for meeting NPCs. What is their initial reaction? What's their emotional state? What's their motivation? A descriptor for them, their nature. What are they doing right now? And then also generator for like enemy actions during combat that are dynamic based on how much health they have. I think that's it. I keep saying I think that's it, and then I find something else. I'm going to have a much higher threshold for anything else I mention about this before we get into Voidspire Territories. There's a section on the Noxian Expanse and exploration procedures that I don't know if we'll use these exact ones in Voidspire Territories, but as you can see, again, pretty simple, but enough variation, and these outdoor exploration steps really easy to follow, and a cool terrain generator so that based on your previous terrain, you roll a d20 and then look at the previous terrain you were on, and then that will tell you what your next one you encounter is. And that's so you don't go from like a swamp to an Arctic territory right away. It'll gradually change. Generators for encounters, for ruins, for settlements, a lot for exploration, bestiary, etc., etc., etc. I think that's it. I think we can move on to Voidspire now. All right, so I think we're going to need some different usage dice. So we'll go, the dice that we're going to be using today are going to be Q Workshop, which I'm I'm addicted to Q Workshop dice because they're beautiful, and there is, for me, one set of dice from them that is like my Everest. If I was the type of person that was like, hey, if anyone wants to buy me a gift, I guess I'm being that type of person. Don't buy this for me. Seriously, don't buy this for me. But the pizza dice from Q Workshop. Oh, look at that. And there's two sets of it. I like these too. These are as good as well. Spinach Supreme. You roll an 11 and it's a Spinach Supreme. One day. It's just 30 is, I mean, come on. You know what I mean? It's like 30, even I spend $15, $20. Basic runic dice set here. This is the llama dice set here. And then we have, I think this is the elven runic, maybe? This is their steampunk clockwork, which I really love these. I've shown these off before. And then these are their final race ones, which are a little hard to read, but I do enjoy. I think these are the ones we won't use today just because it doesn't, well, maybe it does. I don't know. And then, of course, all of the RuneQuest dice are Q Workshop, which are just some of the most gorgeous dice in the world. So, yeah, I think we'll use, for usage dice, we'll use the clock, which is fitting. And then we'll also use the Elven Runic. And if we have to roll, we'll use Llama and the basic rune. I also have this loose one, which I'm not sure what set this is from. Maybe I'll look this one up. But this is sort of like a... Actually, this one looks really cool. This is like an interstellar one, maybe? Oh, maybe we put that to use as well if we need a D8. All right, well, let's continue. All right, so the Voidspire Territories is released 2025. This supplement is, how many pages? I had such a heartbreaking printing of this. I tried to do front and back printing, but I was like 1 page off. So I had to print a bunch of pages that like have pages on the back of them already. Anyways, it's a meaty fellow. Sorry. about 71 pages, 73 pages. And it opens up just with like a little bit about the Voidspire Territories. During the day, they're safer than maybe the rest of the Noxian Expanse, but much like Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, every night is a terrible night for a curse. The fiction set up here, basically, this was a timeline that's just a little over 1,000 years. 0 represents the end of the golden age of technology. Just ignore any pages over here. And the current year is 1005. In the time since that collapse to now, there is several houses of a political faction called the Glass Lords, and there are the circuit priests, which you could think of them as the sort of aligned political and religious factions like the Rome and the Holy Roman Empire or whatever. But then there's the Conduit Knights that I guess serve as both like military and police for the circuit priests. And there is these... this used to be the location of, what was it, the Great Nexus? Nexus Prime, which was this ultra-powerful AI, but it was totally abandoned. And so this AI, Nexus Prime AI, everything that the circuit priests get from this AI, they see as like divine, holy scripture. And they are responsible for interpreting it. But these different houses of Glass Lords, for which they have a couple of names. What were the names of them? I like the houses. Okay, hold on. Let's read the top lines of these. The city is a maze of ancient server rooms, control centers, and maintenance tunnels, now transformed into living spaces, temples, and noble estates. The upper levels are home to the powerful Glass Lords and circuit priests, while the lower levels house the common folks who struggle to make a living. So there's a data center at the middle. The Conduit Knights, clad in powered armor believed to be blessed magical relics, protect the Glass Lords and enforce the machine god's will. They are loyal to their noble houses, their armors adorned with their symbols of allegiance. So this AI, which again they see as like the voice of God, they call it the God of 10,000 glowing eyes, probably the like switches and little indicator lights all over it. It is still giving directives, but like it's sort of, as far as I understand it, it's kind of losing it. And so there are, between these different noble houses, these different, House Luminous, House Dawnrise, House Starmight, House Crystal Heart. They are the Glass Lord centers, House Aether Glass as well. They maintain their control through obviously military and economic control, but they also have this religious influence, and the Conduit Knights who are loyal to each houses and the council. And all of these different houses, all these Glass Lords, they will say that, my only desire or my only motive is to carry out the will of this AI god. But the way they interpret these messages, which have started to make no sense with one another, these varying interpretations of these different messages, has each of these houses saying, no, we're the ones that are following the true word of this divine, divine AI, which I don't really think they wouldn't refer to as an AI anymore. You really have to think of it as imagine if Greek mythology, Zeus, Hermes, all that, if like all of that was based on just like America Online remnants, where people found these advanced technologies and they're so beyond anything they've understand because of the decayed like knowledge base of society, and they are so advanced that people are just like, oh, this is like a spiritual religious thing. And so that's why they see it the way that they do now. It's so distant from them that they see it as they have these interfaces with the divine. The circuit priests are deeply respected by the common people, who view them as the bridge between the mortal world and the divine. However, their power is not absolute. They're divided into factions, each with its own interpretation of the god's will. The Conduit Knights occupy a unique position in Voidspire society. Although the higher positions in the order are traditionally occupied by scions of the different families, it is possible for commoners to not only join their ranks but rise through them. So they'd be like the military or police wing. Most of the common folk live in the Warrens, and we can now roll for a character background that is based on the Voidspire Territories. All right, 16. So I am a rebel sympathizer. You were part of a rebel group that opposed the Glass Lords and their control over the machine god. You fought for the common people, but your actions have made you a wanted person in Voidspire. All right, a little bit of an outlaw. Here's the city of Voidspire, and again, still filling out the art. This will be finished, I assume, pretty soon for Patreon members. So yeah, these are all D100 nighttime encounters. And then, oh darn it, I think I have put a page out of order. 24, no, what's in their pockets? Okay, so this is D66 for if you have like an encounter and that's your spoils, your loot. All right, so generating plots. Voidspire is a complex city with different factions and individuals always plotting, not necessarily against each other, but certainly trying to further their goals, whatever the cost. In order to simulate a potential ongoing conspiracy for you or your players to unravel, use the following method. Roll 5 times on the conspiracy generator table to generate plot elements, assigning each one of the results to one of the boxes in the conspiracy network grid. Look for reasons why different plot elements might be connected. Consider cause and effect relationships. Think about which factions would be involved. So I'll roll these up. I'll say them, and then I'm going to sit. I'm going to have a think, and I'm going to like create a web of conspiracy. The plot elements are designed to be modular and interconnected, allowing for complex. This is so cool. This is so cool. Allowing for complex conspiracies to be generated by combining them. Each element can serve as either a cause or effect of the other elements, creating a web of intrigue. Ooh, sorry. All right, so we'll do a D66 conspiracy generator. I need my llama and my rune. There we go. 14. Several Glass Lord children have disappeared from the upper levels with strange symbols left at every location. Okay. Sorry, it's a little bit hard to... Alright. That's 1. 35. Unauthorized modifications to the city's power grid are causing energy to be redirected to an unknown location. Whew. This music's perfect for this. 35 again, so we'll go 53. The rebel movement has obtained information suggesting some Glass Lords aren't fully human. I guess I'd be part of that rebel movement. Lucky me. All right, 2 more. 16. Temperature readings in the deeper maintenance tunnels show unusual fluctuations that match binary code sequences. And the last one. 64. House Dawnrise has been collecting records of all major system failures since the Great Schism. Okay. So I'm gonna sit and have a think about this. I'm gonna read a little bit about the Dawnrise, see if I can You know, honestly, this is what I do best, is coming up with a conspiracy theory. So give me 5 minutes and I'll tell you why everything's wrong. Everything's gone wrong. All right, so boy, do I have a web of conspiracy here. So important to note, conspiracy theories, like, they're conspiracy theories. They kind of work like rumors, right? And so this stuff could be true, it could be half true, it could be sort of true. So again, there were unauthorized modifications to the city power grid causing fluctuations, and it's redirecting power to an unknown space area. And then there are these temperature readings in deeper maintenance shafts that show fluctuations that match like a binary sequence. Now, this is probably connected here a little bit as well, a lot of it. House Dawnrise has been collecting records of all major system failures since the schism. So I don't know if that's a system failure, but interestingly, like looking up House Dawnrise, they're probably not very interested. Like Lord Dravik of House Dawnrise is a warrior at heart, having risen to power through his prowess at battle and his unyielding loyalty to the machine god. He is a staunch defender of the Conduit Knights, often leading them personally in skirmishes against raiders and rival city-states. Dravik's martial focus has made him a popular figure among the knights, but his lack of interest in political maneuvering has left him vulnerable to the schemes of his fellow Glass Lords. Despite this, his unwavering dedication to the defense of the Voidspire has earned him the respect of many. So it doesn't seem like other than his loyalty to this AI god, which, by the way, this is an early state, but Alex, if you're watching this, I think you have a Lyra, you have 2 Thalias, I think you have 2 Garricks, which I was like, yeah, I guess people do have the same name, but Thalia the healer. I totally get this. Whenever I've tried to write anything, the random names I come up with, they're like, I'll be like, let me think of a name that's just like totally random. And then I'll be like, Thalia. Yeah. And then I'll write that. And then I'll be like, oh, I already have 3 Thalias. Anyways, so, all right. So the temperature readings are fluctuating. House Dawnrise has been supposed to be collecting records of all major system failures. The rebel movement has obtained info that some Glass Lord aren't human. And then this was, like, to me, I don't know exactly what it means to be at the center, but I know that several Glass Lord children have been disappearing from the upper levels. That's got to be most certainly the focus of most people's conspiracy theorizing, right? I mean, that would be the thing that would generate, out of all of these things, the highest level of public interest. The rebel movement has obtained info that some Glass Lords aren't human. That, to me, could be something that, if there was like significant evidence, I think some people would be really compelled by that, but it also sounds like it could as easily be the type of theory of like, oh, did you know that like lizard people control, the world, which they do. I mean, everybody knows that, but okay. So I'm in this weird place where, like, and this happens a lot. I really like this system of this grid here because it makes you think of relationships. And I kind of went from like, I don't know, how are these all connected, to almost like over determining this stuff, which you don't, obviously these are pieces of information that could or could not be true. They could or could be part of a larger picture. So you don't, I don't think it would be advantageous to solo play to like solve this, but I can tell you what's on my mind. And this really isn't a spoiler because I'm probably the first person and maybe the last person, given whatever sort of like mathematical chances there are to have this, arrangement of rumors in this order. But I'm thinking, okay, you have these children missing. You have this rebel movement that says that some of the glass lords aren't human. You have these temperature readings that are fluctuating, and there's some sort of binary code that they're communicating through these fluctuations. This power grid has also been fluctuating and redistricting or redirecting this power. So I was like, all right, I'm a rebel sympathizer. That's important. I'm not necessarily a rebel. I'm a sympathizer. And maybe that's not, maybe nobody knows that, or very few people know that. And I got this idea that, like, even though I sympathize with them, that's a secret, and I'm actually, like, somewhere in the hierarchy. I'm not in a very high spot necessarily, but maybe I am like a member of the court, so to speak. Like, I'm in the Glass Lords, and I'm like a mid-level operator. I have to figure out, I'm thinking I have some sort of tech. Maybe I'm just a reclaimer that is favored by the Glass Lords. But I do have this rebel sympathy. And I stand up for those who have little. So you have this grid fluctuation. The children are missing. Some of them aren't human. So what I'm thinking, and again, this is a bit overdetermined, but I'm like, the rebels have been working off of this intel that the Glass Lords aren't human. And they think that revealing this will totally delegitimate them in one way or another, either that they're artificial or that they're like some sort of heresy, you know, like they're trying to be like the AI, the god of 10,000 eyes. Either way, they start doing these abductions. And maybe it could be that they were inspired by this sequence, that there are prophets in the Warrens, in these sort of less fortunate spaces of the Spire, that have been communicating to these prophets or a prophet and saying, you know, that's where this information came from. You know that the Glass Lords, they're not real. You have to get proof. And so they started doing this to get proof. And then they kept listening to these binary sequence things, and so maybe they couldn't find proof, and so maybe they started to make proof, and maybe they started installing things rather than just, I know it's not very YouTube friendly, but rather than, let's say, investigating the insides of those that they've abducted, they started installing things in there. And so there's almost like these half beings that are growing up with these parts in them. And maybe that's already been happening, and that's why they're not real. And I also noticed this very interesting piece of history, which I really like. I really like this. It's aggravating. Like, anything lore-wise that's aggravating works really well. It doesn't seem like that would be the case. Like, no, if you're writing background or lore, you should be answering questions. But it's actually the fact that this is aggravating that makes me really interested. In 557, there was this warrior, Herrick the Bloodmarked. And he started I guess it was a revolution, but it was these raiders under his banner start progressing across the Noxian Expanse. In the area of the Voidspire, gathering public support, and his army's just growing and growing and growing. And they get to the Spire, and they outnumber the Conduit Knights 10-1. So the Conduit Knights are like, we're dead. This is over. But then Herrick just suddenly gives an order to leave and disbands. And to this day, nobody knows why. And so I'm thinking that bigger picture, that maybe this AI has been fracturing, it's becoming dumber because it's starting to install itself through nanotech little by little in people. And some people have more of it, and that's why those people are prophets or leaders or whatever, is because this is like their biology is enhanced. But at the same time, at any time, these nanites can be turned on to control a person because it's like flowing through their blood. And so Herrick had like found something that gave him a lot of these nanites, right? He found some old like vessel of the network, opened it up, breathed in all these nanites, becomes extremely charismatic, extremely powerful, gathers this big thing, and then just before he gets to the spire, he's like, wait, everyone go home. And then the same thing, maybe it needs to accelerate this process, because no matter how powerful the Nexus AI was, it was incorporeal, it was disembodied. And so now it's sending out these sequences to people in the Warrens to actually just like make dramatic upgrades to people. And the people who would be susceptible would be the people that already have some nanites in them, which are the upper crust. So this is just some ideas I had, and we'll see, like, you know, who knows how much of that is real or how much of that will happen. But to me, at least, I have this sort of like mosaic in my head now. And so if I'm, you know, thinking of myself, like, where would I want to start? I was thinking the piece of this that seems most banal is that House Dawnrise has been collecting records of all major system failures since the schism. And these temperature readings people are saying that they're giving this binary code, and there's this redirecting of energy. So like if we cut off all of this for a second and we say, oh yeah, you know, like think of the opening of an episode where someone picks up a newspaper, and the newspaper has, you know, a big headline, another one goes missing, Glass Lords talking about further, you know, restricting movement within Warrens or something. And then there's like an opinion piece in the bottom right that says like, Glass Lords, made of glass or made of fiberglass, you know, to say they're synthetic. And maybe it's still like a fringe-ish belief, but like forget all that, because that's the bigger picture. And what am I? I'm a mid-level operative inside House Dawnrise. In House Dawnrise, maybe there used to be 10 of me, like my position, which is I'm basically supposed to check like meter readings. But since Lord Dravik is only interested in like going into battles and stuff with the Conduit Knights, a lot of my budget for my department has been redistricted to combat. And especially now that these kids are going missing, they're on high alert. And so I'm basically like, okay, I've got these readings that there is this unauthorized redirection of power, which is actually not uncommon, I'm betting, right? If you have people with tons of means and then you have these other people living beneath them, they're probably going to, whenever possible, skim off the top, right? And so they're probably, you know, it's probably a common thing for them to grab an electrical, what are they, the ley lines, and siphon off energy. And so it's happened before, and I have to go investigate it. And maybe I'm looking at these other ones. Power conduit attendant. You worked on the massive power conduit that divides the city, ensuring they remain functional even though you just followed the old rituals and barely understood. Maybe I am that. I mean, I could be both of these. I'm a power conduit attendant. I'm in Dawnspire. I turn in these reports. I have a bin that I turn them in, and like there's the last 8 that I've turned in are still just sitting in the bin. Like, nobody cares. Yeah, so the Basilica is the middle level here that separates the barracks, but somebody from the Warrens has, pulled one of the ley lines, and they're redirecting power, and they don't know where it's going. All right, and maybe it says that it's going off to like something near the Blackrock mines, which in terms of the map that I have, that's like one of the off-campus locations that I am aware of. All right, anyways, I have to go investigate this. And so I wanted to fill in a little bit more of who I am. An interesting part of this supplement is if you choose to align yourself with one of the 3 like factions, you can move up the ranks. Okay, so I'll try to explain what this means here. So I'm working for the Glass Lords. For players who choose to align themselves with the Glass Lords and work their way up the social ladder, the following ranks provide a clear progression. Each rank comes with increasing responsibilities, privileges, and challenges, culminating in the prestigious title of Court Lord, the only noble title attainable by player characters. The PC's contact is Lord Herrick, who works from his office in the upper levels. He is their liaison and the person responsible for assigning them. Freemen are the lowest rank within most societies in the Noxian Expanse, and this is the first rank for if you work for the Glass Lords or the Conduit Knights or the Circuit Priests. Freemen working for the Glass Lords are granted limited access to the upper levels and are expected to perform tasks for their patrons, such as running errands, gathering information, or assisting with minor administrative duties. So this gives me access to restricted areas of the Voidspire with supervision, basic protection under the Glass Lord's banner, and opportunities to earn coin and resources. All right, and then there's like Vassal, Warden, and again, I can get all the way up to Court Lord. And I would then, go on these different quests to earn reputation, etc. And then Blackrock is this bustling settlement that serves as the primary hub for coal mining in the Voidspire. That's a separate place. And so that's sort of the end part of this fills in these different... The Blackrock is actually separate from the Voidspire, but it gives you these NPCs. Another one named Garrick. And then another Leela. There's now a Leela. There's 2 Lyras. Aaliyah and Alila. Very good. So we have some plot hooks here. Investigate strange phenomena. Some strange phenomena have been reported in the deepest tunnels, including ghostly apparitions and unexplained noises. Sent to investigate, but they soon discover it's linked to ancient technology. So we just use that as an adaptation, and then this is a bestiary. So I'm going to go back to the original book and see what a good place to start with this is, but because I just don't want to miss anything that could propel things forward. But I think actually... here, let me show you this. Okay, so this is an events, D20 events table for the Voidspire tunnels and crypts, and I'm thinking that, like, this is probably where I need to go. I need to get access to this. I have to have a light source, or I have disadvantage on perception. But this is fundamentally a ruin. So I'm going into this, but I'm using the ruin mapping rules from the core book, but there's just certain parts that I can skip because I'll already know sort of some things about it because it is a set place. But then whenever an event comes up, I'll use this table as a supplement for it. So I'm going to rearrange things a little bit, give myself a little more space just so that we can try a little bit of the exploration, see if we could do some encounters, etc. So you can get an idea of how the flow of the game might work. But I think let's start in the tunnels. Let's forget, we'll worry about who gave me the quest. We'll worry about all that stuff later. So right off the bat, regardless of what happens here, I know that scene number 1 is going to be in the Voidspire tunnels / crypts. And I also know that what I'm working on, the sort of arc here, is investigating power, I guess we'll say siphoning, and reports. If I bet if we got a report that like, oh, it's the fluctuations are in binaric code, I'd be like, yeah, okay, well, we'll go check that out. But I'm investigating these power siphoning disruptions, and there's this thought that it's getting redirected to a location. So there might even be some suspicion that it's going to the BlackRock settlement. There is a competition between them to unknown location, and there's reports of like that the fluctuations are spelling out binaric code. And so no twist modifier yet, but we'll see what we can figure out. Okay, so we have that set up. We'll use this grid. It does say that we can skip like the size thing. Normally we would determine the ruin size, but because the tunnels and crypts are so huge, I said just pretend like it goes on forever. It's functionally infinite. But then we forgot it. We'll assume we have a light source. We'll worry about that later. So essentially, let's just take a look at this. It is assumed that when you first enter a ruin, you find yourself within a room. The first room doesn't have anything of interest in it. So we'll just say that we start here on like A1. Okay. The first room doesn't have anything of interest in it, and there are no encounters. From there on, you must roll on the area layout table to find what comes next. Each time you move on to the next area, you must roll on the area layout table. Once you enter a new room or corridor, roll a d4. This is the number of additional exits, not counting the one you just entered, that the area has. Place these exits wherever you see fit. Let me get a better d4. I think we'll actually use like graph paper for this, because as I'm looking at this, you gotta roll d8 to see like length of corridor. So I think this is more like overland travel. What is in here? Oh. Yeah, this is a map for ultraviolet grasslands, and it's like this wide. The whole thing is this wide, but it's like 3 different things long. So it's a huge map from top to bottom. All right, hang on a second. Okay, so when entering a ruin for the first time, you must find out its size and conditions. We know that it's dark and its size is infinity for this one. Its ruin size is determined by a usage dice as seen on the ruin size. This usage dice is the starting one. Once you reach the end of the UD chain, you've fully explored the ruin. Oh, I really like that actually. That's a really good usage dice. So every room you go into, you roll that, and it gets smaller and smaller until you roll a 1 or 2 on a d4, and then you've explored everything. Determine if the area you're entering is a room or corridor by rolling on the room layout table. So we're in this room right here. This is like the first room. The next room we're going to check, is this a room or a corridor? I guess that's a d10. 2. All right, so we're going into a corridor, and we roll a d8 to see the corridor's length. 1. So because it's just a short corridor. When you enter a room, roll on the room contents table and use the room details. These tables should help you figure out the room's original purpose. Nope. Each time you enter a new area, be it a room or corridor, roll d10. A result of 1 to 3 indicates you've run into trouble. 4. Alright. Roll on the rune encounter. So we don't have to do that. So basically, we would just roll again on the area layout. Alright, so we now enter a room and roll 2d6 with each die being of different color to better differentiate. Oh, okay, so it's an XY, rise over run. Alright, so it is 1 high, 6 long. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Well, wouldn't that be another? Well, we'll just say it's a narrow room. Oh, and then we have to roll, what is it, a d4 to determine if there is, how many exits there are, right? Rolling a d4. 3. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so we have 1 exit there, and then we'll do 1 exit here, exit, exit, and we'll just do 1 like straight down. That makes sense. All right. Roll on the room contents table. Oh. Nope, that's the events. So the room contents, we roll a d6. 3. Empty. Very good. All right, so we'll try a different room here. Oh, a d10. Room layout or corridor. 5. Okay, a room. Rise over run. 6 over llama. Is a llama a 6? Alright, so this is a big room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright. I'll make it pretty later, I promise. Okay. Now, what I could check the exits here. 3. Great. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And room contents. D6. Now, we're going to say 5. Security system. You've potentially triggered a security system. Roll on the security. Ooh, I do like that. See, we should get some room details as well. Okay, so we have a room, we have a security system and the room details. So we'll figure out the security system, but first, let's do a D100 for the room details with a verb. That's interesting to start that. We'll try it out. 54. Ensnare theme. What was that? 86. Other plane. Ensnare other plane. What are the other examples on here? Just so, okay. Secret construction. Okay, other plane. So some sort of like access. And let's see about the security system here. 5. A lockdown. Okay, so the room is locked down. And Now, we have to remember where we are, right? We are in these crypts. And so we'll say the other plane, we'll make that literally a plane, meaning a different level or surface. And we'll say that I have like entered a room that has a higher security clearance. And so it's locked down, and the circuit priests, like a hologram of one of them, shows up and is like, state your business here immediately or suffer elimination. And it keeps like referring to me as contamination. Lockdown. The ruin enters a lockdown protocol. All undiscovered rooms become locked, so the only way to move forward is forcing your way via a hard, strong check each time you want to access a new room. Okay. We could do that, but it's like the lockdown I set up is a little bit different. And I bet you we can do an intelligence check, which I have a +2 on. And this should be pretty straightforward. It should be a pretty straightforward check because I have the right credentials and everything. I just need to like remember my access code or whatever. And so I'll roll a d20 and we'll say that the target number for that I would say is 8. Perfect. 20. So it's a crit. So I completely like neutralize the security system 100%. The doors go up. I don't even have to pry them open or anything like that. And then it says, welcome Dawnspire agent number such and such and such. And we have the exits and the ruin encounters. If there's no encounter and you've entered a room, roll on the ruin event table. I sort of did that. Once you've cleared a room, you can search it to see if you find anything of value. Assign one character, that's me, to make a hard intelligence check. For each other character assisting them, add +1. Searching a room can only be done once. If successful, you found something of interest, roll on the scavenging table on page 86. Okay, so let's revisit really quick, because I think I'm running out of gas here a little bit. The difficulty tables. And my modifier is +2. So it would say that it wants to see this as a phone number. So if I'm going to roll a hard check, that's a dynamic target number. Okay, so it needs to be over 15. Oh! Can't even roll the dice. So I still get a +2 on this. It's intelligence. And 13 + 2 is 15. Great. And so we're going to... That's a surprise event. Not in the ruins. Let's find the... Oh boy. Where did my ruins go? Where's my ruins? All right. Scavenging table on page 86. And once you're ready to leave, pick an exit and determine if the next room is a room or a corridor and so on. Okay, so let's go to 86 to see what I find here. Scavenging D20. 11. A random piece of gear. So that's a random weapon, random armor, D10 for random gear. 4. A lamp. There you go. There's my light source right there. And so on and so forth. So, yeah. We're almost at an hour and a half. So I know that there's probably some of you that are very fixated on combat. You probably like to see combat. My sense is that combat is very similar to combat in Ruthless Heavens, maybe even more simplified. I think if I recall correctly, there was only like 3 distances you could be in. Let me check here. Combat. Yeah, so we'd roll Dex versus Perception, Initiative. Right. You could either be engaged in melee, nearby, or far away. So you do a standard attack. I actually kind of like the system for attacks. Everything is player facing. Okay, so if I wanted to attack, I would do D20, depending on my weapon, plus my strength, versus the difficulty rating. And then if I was defending, I wouldn't roll for the enemy. I would roll D20 plus my dice roll versus the enemy attack number. And I would just measure it that way. And so looks like there's some different maneuvers that would be possible here to do a combat. I'm wondering if people are setting up miniatures for that, but everything looks a lot more taut, and I really do like that. I think sometimes less is more. But yeah, let me know what you think. If the people demand it from the rafters, maybe we could take a look at combat. But I think I'm gonna fall asleep if I keep going. So this is Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse by Alex T. Link is below to join the Patreon. You get this and a lot of other awesome stuff by joining Alex. Great game. The new one is called Voidspire Territories, and that should be out soon, as well as some other stuff. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you on, as they say, the flippy dippy.